when I got to Seattle, everybody looked like they were having a good time. Now, it translated on the football field too, because the first practice I go to, there's music blasting. You got Richard Sherman talking trash. You got Earl Thomas, all these guys talking trash, and I'm sitting here like, this is different.
All right, joining us in Seattle, Washington, we got 10-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champ, and Pro Bowler, my man, Cliff Avril. Cliff,
Yes,
welcome
sir.
to the report, my man. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. So much to dig in here.
Yes, let's do
I know
it.
I interviewed you on my other podcast, The Multifamily Takeoff, a little while back. We talked a lot of real estate stuff, but with this conversation, I really want to dig into your background, what it was like being an NFL player growing up. But to start, why don't you talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Jacksonville? Your parents have Haitian roots.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what that was like.
It's funny because growing up being Haitian but being in Jacksonville, like I had to balance between two cultures, right? Being Haitian, once I'm in my house, we speak nothing but Creole. I'm eating Haitian food, like it's nothing but Haitian culture. But once I walk out those doors and I go to school or I'm at practice or whatever, it's adjusting to the American culture, right? So like having that balance and being made fun of, and they call it bullying now, I guess, but being made fun of because I was Haitian, because I had that different culture. But then, once I started playing sports, things kind of changed a little bit. But overall, though, it was just trying to find that balance of who I am between the two cultures.
Yeah. And how old were your parents when they moved over here?
So my parents both met here in the States, actually, but my mom was 24, my dad was 27. Or no, I lied, 37. Shoot.
Yeah.
And they met here in the States, and a couple years later they had little old me.
Yeah. And so obviously you had a successful NFL career, ended up, having multiple contracts. But early on, as a kid growing up, what did you grow up like? Did your parents come from much money at all? I know your mom used to donate a lot of money over to Haiti. What was that like?
No. So both parents, they came to the States, didn't speak English,
Wow.
didn't understand the culture or anything like that. But it was more along the lines of just having the opportunity to work, coming from a Haiti, which is considered a third world country. There wasn't jobs. There wasn't they really literally came here to have the opportunity to be able to work, to send money back home. And my mom worked 3 jobs her entire life up until I got to the NFL, where she decided, I'll just work 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And it's not till recently where she decided to kind of slow down and is working 1. But overall, again, it was just all about the opportunity to be able to work, to be able to provide, having, $200 in her account, and she's going to send half of that back to Haiti, and we're going to figure things out here, because this is way more comfortable than it is in Haiti.
Yeah.
And we're living in the projects at the time, but
Wow.
it's all about perspective.
Yep.
And that's kind of my motto now in life is, it's, although things may seem hard or whatever, like it could be way worse.
Right.
And we've seen that as a family. We've seen that, growing up in that background. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah. And so you were a 4-sport player in
Yes.
high school, track,
Yeah.
weightlifting, basketball, and football. And you were all state in basketball and football.
Yes.
That's impressive, my man. So talk a little bit about that. What was it like juggling 4 different sports in high school?
So football in particular, like I didn't start playing till 10th grade. Most of my peers, they've been playing since they were, peewee.
Wow.
But I didn't start playing sports really till high school. And every season, I was just trying to find a way to not go home, 1, and 2, I just like being active.
Yeah.
So fall was football. Right after fall, you roll into winter sports, which is basketball. Track is right after that. And then spring football is a thing back in Florida. So, it was nonstop. And I'm a firm believer that all of those components made me better for the next sport. And I just wanted to be around all my friends too. So that's another reason why I started playing football, is because all my friends during basketball season were playing football. So I'm like, let me try this football thing out.
Yeah.
And it was too physical. It was too, like, in the Haitian culture, football was too barbaric. Like, and I'm my mom's only child. So she's like, ain't no way in hell you playing football. Like, what are you talking about? And she actually didn't find out about me playing football till my senior year. And it was somebody from work that was like, hey, she pulled up a newspaper and like, isn't this your son? He's a pretty good football player. She's like, football? What are you talking about? And I kind of had to break it down to her like, yeah, I've been playing football for the last few years, and I might be able to go to college playing this thing.
Yeah.
So then she's like, oh, okay. I guess I'll let you play since, you can further your education. But at first she was not game for that.
How did you hide it from her for 3 years? You were living with her, right?
I was living with her, but she worked 3 jobs. So she was really never around. So she's thinking I'm at school doing like different activities and whatnot. But like, no, I'm at football practice.
Wow.
And I broke my leg playing football, told her it was basketball. Like, I was kind of lying to her. But overall though, she was happy with the fact that I could, go to school because we had no clue how I was going to do that.
What position did you play in basketball?
So, man, I played back in the day when big men played with their backs to the rim. So I was basically a forward. I went into high school at 6 foot tall. So in my head, I'm still going to be a hooper. Like I'm going to grow. I'm 14 years old. I'm 6 foot.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to keep growing, not realizing my mom's only 5'2". Like it's not gonna go that far, right?
Yeah.
But I played with my back to the rim. Played the 3 and the 4 essentially, and I could have played college ball actually.
Wow. I love that, man. So at what point in high school did you know, okay, I'm going to go play football at the next level?
So, like I said, I played my sophomore year, and I was just on the team my sophomore year. Junior year, something clicked where I figured out how to play this thing. Like, I'm a little bit bigger than everybody. All you got to do is throw your body into people. You know what I mean? Once you get over the fact that it hurts a little bit, and so junior year, I only played 6 games. I ended up breaking my leg. And then a lot of schools just started recruiting me based on just me being an athlete. My stats were pretty crazy my junior year. And after my junior year, a lot of schools started kind of, throwing scholarships and visits and different things like that. I'm like, oh, I actually might be able to keep playing this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I almost quit after my sophomore year, actually.
Why?
To play basketball. I was like, this football thing is too hard. You know what I mean? Like I said, I wasn't playing much or anything like that. So
what did you like playing more at the time?
I still love basketball more than football.
Yeah.
I still
why is that?
It's just what I kind of grew up playing. Yeah. It's the cardio, like even when I was in the league, off season, that's all I did was play basketball. That's how I stayed in shape. While I was playing football. So it was just, I don't know, it's just a passion that I had. MJ's my favorite athlete of all time. Like I'm a big hooper. Till this day, like I said, I go hoop. I get with some of the guys around here. There's a lot of pros around here, whether you talk about Isaiah Thomas, Jamal Crawford, all those guys. So
love Jay Smooth.
Oh man, he's a beast.
I love him.
So any chance I get to go hoop with those guys, I'm out there, and so it's just always been a passion of mine.
Yeah, love that. So anyway, come out of high school, you go on and play with Purdue. What was that like, man? Learning to become a successful real estate investor can take a lot of time and dedication, which some people just don't have. If you're one of these individuals, this doesn't mean you can't invest in real estate. My company, Summers Capital, is buying a bunch of boutique hotels right now, and you can invest with us in these deals without having to do any of the work. Our team sources the deals, we secure the lending, we take care of all the renovations, and we even handle all the day-to-day operations with our in-house management company, making it truly hands-off and passive for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, go to summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show. Going over to Purdue because they're over there in Indiana, right?
Culture shock.
Yeah.
It was a culture shock, man. Coming from Jacksonville, Florida, going to the Midwest, nothing but cornfields and everything else. But it was, I tell people this all the time. I've been blessed to play 10 years in the league, Super Bowls, Pro Bowls, traveled, whatever. I've been blessed to do all that stuff. The best 3.5 years of my life was in college. I didn't have any worries. Check the mail, and back in college, it might be a check in there. Nowadays, it's nothing but bills, right?
Yeah.
So, but more so than anything, man, it's where I got to grow up. That's where I became a man. You know what I'm saying? Understanding how to move around, time management, being able to learn to budget a little bit. Where $100 can last you 3-4 weeks, you know what I'm saying, in college. Like, it was just where I grew up and became a man. So it was and that's where I met my wife as well.
Yeah. Oh, really? In college?
Yes, in college.
How did you meet your wife?
So my roommate, he was Mr. Football in Indiana.
Okay.
she went to school with him, and they grew up together essentially since they were like in, I don't know, 4th grade.
Okay.
And one day he needed to get his hair braided, and he's like, bro, I'm about to go get my hair braided. You want to just come with me? I was sitting in the dorm doing nothing. And she was braiding his hair.
No.
And that's just how we met, and then we just became friends from there, and started dating my senior year.
Wow. Did your roommate go on to play at the next level?
No, he did not. He did not. You know, that's the interesting piece, because so many guys that are like, when you go to college, you know, you play Division I. These guys are probably the best in their areas, right?
Yeah.
Wherever they grew up at, whether it's
Mr. Indiana.
He was Mr. Indiana, exactly, right? But when you get to college, it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
You're starting all over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, he never really got as much playing time that he would have liked, you know, at Purdue probably. And he never got that chance to keep playing after the fact.
What was it like your first game in the college level? I mean, the guys are much bigger.
Yes.
They're much quicker. The whole game is just moving a lot faster. What is that transition like for someone coming out of high school?
It was tough from the standpoint of the playbook. Every level, the playbook is what gets you. You know, the mental part of the game, because you got to think about it again. You know, everybody on a Division I team is the best in whatever. They're probably the best in whatever city they came from.
Right.
You know, so now you're competing with the cream of the crop, essentially, of the country. And I would say the hardest part was being able to adjust. Because now football, although, you know, you're a student athlete, football is what pays for you to be here.
Yeah.
So you better make sure you're on top of your game. You know what I mean? Making sure you because there's this thing, you have a block on your schedule from 2 to 6 or 2 to 7 where you can't have class. So now it's the time management piece of making sure you get all your schoolwork done. And now you got to go bust your tail on this football field. So just that transition of being able to manage all that and football, honestly feeling like a job, even back then, being able to manage, making sure you're doing your thing on the football field, but also making sure you're keeping those grades together is probably the hard part of balancing all of that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I know in college, man, so you started off as linebacker, and then you transitioned over to DB. I'm going to read your stats from 2006 season. You started all 14 games, first 4 at linebacker, and then the last 10 at defensive end. You recorded 84 tackles, 15 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, 6 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 INT. That is an impressive season, my man. What was it like being a linebacker? And then talk about the transition. Like, how did that even come to fruition?
I fought it, man. I fought
Did you?
Yeah, because
were you playing inside or outside?
I was an outside linebacker. Okay. So I played defensive end in high school.
Okay.
But so my biggest thing was I didn't want to redshirt whatever school I went to. So I wanted to get in school, and go right back home. Like that was my goal.
Yeah.
So Purdue, I knew that one of the reasons I went to Purdue outside of education was they had 9 guys get drafted off their defense. So I'm like, okay, push come to shove, I'm battling with a second string guy.
Yeah.
Get there, I become the second string guy. So now, like, I'm getting comfortable being a linebacker. So I'm excited about being a linebacker, and I'm starting up until that point. And then my junior year, a good friend of mine named Anthony Spencer was crushing it at defensive end. But now he needed some help on the other side. So they're like, man, you're one of our best athletes. Just try it out. Yeah. I'm like, man, I'm your starting linebacker. Why would you want to move me to defensive end? Like, you know? And I never forget this conversation. They walked me into this room and they said, hey, you can probably keep playing football if you move to defensive end. You're a decent linebacker, but you probably won't play in the pros as a linebacker. I'm like, I hear you, but I feel like I'm doing well at this position. But anyways, I fought the transition, but I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. This is what's best for the team. Let's do it. I moved to defensive end, and my guy Anthony Spencer, like I said, was crushing it, and I just kind of followed his lead. I'm like, okay, well, let me see how this guy does it, so I can, you know, kind of figure this thing out. And you read the stats off, and I was competing with him. Our stats were very similar, and he got drafted in the first round that year. So that's when the light came on for me. Was like, I might actually be able to play this thing in the league for real, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at stats. Yeah. And, I mean, he killed me in sacks, but as far as for tackles and everything else, he, you know, he was crushing it. So that's when I realized, like, oh, I might actually still be able to play this thing in the league.
So moving positions like that, did they want you to put on a little bit more weight? Did they want you to do anything in terms of like nutrition and in the weight room?
Well, I was gaining. So every year I was at Purdue, I gained like 10 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean the protocol of how they feed the mess out of you, protein bars and all this other stuff. So every year I gained 10 pounds. So by the time I moved to defensive end, I was probably like 250. So I was 250 playing linebacker. Now I'm looking back at it, I was too dang on big anyways.
Yeah.
So I was fit for it, but it was just a little bit more physical than I was used to. But yeah, they had a program that allowed me to kind of put on some weight. I was fairly fast for my size. So it all kind of it was like a puzzle. It all kind of came together once I actually agreed to the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then 2008, you decide to enter the NFL draft. You get picked in the third round by the Detroit Lions. And that first year in Detroit, man, it's probably a little bit bittersweet because you had a good season, right?
Yes.
But and Calvin Johnson was drafted the year prior to you, but you were part of that 0-16 team. Talk a little bit about what that rookie season was like, man.
It was brutal, man. But you know what's funny is I didn't realize how bad we were because I was so locked into just trying not to be the reason why. You know what I mean? I was just fighting for playing time. Like that was my only thing. I was just wanted to fight for playing time. Every week was because the season's so long. You go from playing 11 games to 16, 17 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a long season for you as a young player. So again, I didn't focus on it, and it wasn't until my first off season. So right after that, of course, I realized I went 0-16, but I didn't realize how bad that really was until my first off season, where people used to start laughing at me. Like, you play for the Lions, you was on the 0. I'm like, but I'm in the NFL. Like, what are you talking? Like, how's that a knock? But then you look back, you're like, no, you were trash. Like, the team was trash. You know what I'm saying? Like 0-16, like we were the first team to ever do that, right? Yeah. So that it was just a different perspective for me. Like I said, I was just trying to get some playing time. I just wanted to kind of be one of the few sparks of hope for the future. You know what I mean? Right. So like that was my only goal, and you know, looking back at it, I realized why we sucked. You know what I mean? But as a rookie, you don't know how this thing works. You know, I didn't realize that, you know, players didn't cuss coaches out. You know what I mean? Like that's why we were 0-16. But I'm just thinking, this is just the NFL. This is just what it is. Yeah. And you figure it out. How are you going to stay in this whole thing?
Yeah. So I know it was week 17 of that 2008 season. I think you guys played Green Bay.
Yes.
And Matt Flynn was quarterback, right? So did you guys feel going into that game in the locker room like, hey, like backup quarterback, we got a chance here to get one win on the board?
Yes. We're in Green Bay. Yeah. They're like, they're not playing their starter. Yeah. We're gonna all right. We're gonna get a chance to play because I think they're already in the playoffs, so they're not starting they're not. I think Aaron Rodgers, they're not starting him. And I'm like, okay, we got a chance. Like, I think I was starting at the time. I think I was starting the last 4 or 5 games of the season. So I'm like, man, we got us a chance. And he goes out there and he torches us. I mean, that's what put him on
the map.
That's what made Seattle sign him. Seattle Seahawks signed him the next year, gave him a big deal or whatever. Put him on the map. He torches us for like 500 something yards, 5-6 touchdowns. Like, I was like, oh yeah, we are trash. Like this is all bad. So yeah, I thought we had a chance until the game started, and it went downhill from there.
Yeah, I remember that game. It's people were like, "Who the hell is this Matt Flynn guy?"
Yes.
You guys up, and then he got signed that big contract with Seattle.
Yes.
But never saw another big game out of him like that.
No, heck no. It was just perfect timing for him. Yeah. Everything is timing in football. Yeah. And it was just perfect timing. Yeah, it was perfect timing for him. He came out there, showed that he can beat a professional team.
Yeah.
We were just terrible. Yeah. Like we were just garbage, and he torched us. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you ended up actually turning it around. You guys built up, made some good runs there in the next few years over in Detroit. You guys made the playoffs. What was it like playing with Calvin Johnson? So like Calvin was a beast when he was playing over there. And I know a couple of those years, 2011 and the 2012 season, I took some notes here looking at his stats. He played all 32 games. He had 218 receptions over the 2 years, 3,645 receiving yards, and 21 touchdowns over those 2 seasons. What was that like playing with him and just kind of being in the locker room with, at the time, the best wide receiver in the league?
You know what? He didn't know he was the best wide receiver. We didn't even realize he was the best wide receiver in the league because we were losing. You know what I mean? Like we weren't that good. So like Calvin Johnson didn't make it to a Pro Bowl till his third year, I want to say. But his stats were crazy.
Yeah.
But he's not in a market where he can be promoted in that way, right? So
because you guys weren't on national TV a whole lot.
The only national game we had was freaking Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
that was it, right? So like that was your chance to like, man, Mom, you can see me on TV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with CJ in particular, like we knew how good he was, but we like on a national stage, you know, you didn't see it because we didn't have those games, and just some of the stuff that he would do at practice, you're like, what the heck is this guy doing? You know what I mean? But then like when you see it on game day, that was nothing new to us.
Yeah.
It was just more so new for the rest of the country to see. And some of the plays, I've seen this man go over top 4 people, and somehow he's the one that comes down with the ball. You know what I mean? Like it was just incredible. But more so than anything with CJ, man, the superstar that he was, you would not have known it. You know what I mean? Like he makes the cover of Madden. And literally, like, he goes around passing it out to every one of his teammates, and signs it for you. And, you know, like most superstars, you know, they might just screw the rest of y'all, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that's just not who he was. He was super down-to-earth guy that I don't even think he understood how great he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he understood, like, how much of a superstar he really was. But he was just a super humble guy that just came to work every day and put his best foot forward every single day.
So when he was on the cover of Madden, he just brought a bunch of games in and signed them
If
and
you
just
asked
started
for
giving
it,
them out?
He was like, hey, I had just had my first son, and I was like, hey, bro, can I get 2 of them? One for my son.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm a fan.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this guy's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, can I get a sign? Come on, man. Comes to the locker room, signs it off, and my son still has it to this day.
Yeah. Wow.
Nah, CJ is awesome, man. And again, he's super humble. You would not know he is a Hall of Fame. This man made the Hall of Fame in 9 years, playing 9 years, or maybe it was 8 or 9 years in the NFL. That's like to do that, you got to be super impressive, man. And he was definitely that.
And to be able to walk away from the game on your own terms. A lot of players, I mean, yourself included, they're forced out of the league because of injury. But for him to walk away at the top at his own terms and still make the Hall of Fame and have all those records and the contract, I mean, that's a different level, right?
I say this all the time about NFL players in particular. 99% of us don't retire on our own terms. 99% of us, it's the league either kicks you out or injury kicks you out. You know what I mean? Usually never leave out on top. And I only know 2 players in my 10-year run that have left on their own terms. Was Calvin Johnson and Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn even came back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that one stint with the Raiders.
Yeah, exactly. He even came back, right? So like to be able to leave while you're on top is pretty impressive in the sense of just knowing your value, but your priorities change and you're okay leaving. Now, CJ also made a whole bunch of money too, so it makes it a little bit easier to make that decision. Yeah. But overall, though, it's very impressive for someone to be able to just be like, you know what? Although I've been playing this game since I was a little kid, I think I'm ready to quit and try something new. And to be able to actually pull it off while you're on top of your game is pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it is. So anyway, so going on to have a really good 5-year stint there with the Detroit Lions. You had 3 seasons where you had 5.5 sacks or more. I'm sorry, all five seasons, 5.5 sacks or more, and 3 seasons of 8 sacks or more, which is very, very impressive. And you turned down a $30 million contract. Yeah. Talk us through that. What was that like, and what was the thought process behind all that?
You know, it was interesting in the time because at the time I hadn't made any money for real. I mean, you know, relatively speaking.
You were just on that rookie contract.
I was still on my rookie deal, and I had the franchise tag in front of me, and they offered me this 3-year, $30 million deal.
So it was like one or the other?
It was one of the the franchise tag was for sure. Okay. And at that time, I think it was like 10.6, right? Yeah. So I'm like, at a minimum, y'all got to guarantee me 20, you know what I mean? And that's the piece that people don't realize. Like in the NFL, and what I learned early on was the numbers don't matter. It's just the guaranteed numbers that matter, right? You see these contracts, $200-300 million, but it's only $20 million guaranteed. And I say only loosely because I know people go crazy about numbers, but it's only 20 of it guaranteed or something like that. And that's a terrible deal.
Yeah, especially in a sport where it could end tomorrow.
It literally
Yeah.
can end on one play,
Yeah.
right? So like for me, I was just looking at the guaranteed portion of it, and the guarantee, I was like, well, if you're going to guarantee me $10 million on a 3-year deal, but you're going to give me $10 million for 1 year anyways, why wouldn't I just take the $10 million and then just let's revisit this next year? You
That
know
makes
what I mean?
a lot of sense, right?
So like that was the perspective I was coming from,
Yeah.
but I was also betting on myself because, like we just said, you're one play away from being out of the league, you know, from an injury or whatever else. But that was a chance I was willing to take, and I had some insurance and different things like that put in place to recoup if I was to get hurt or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was just betting on myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would like to say my bet was pretty solid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you take the franchise tag, and then the next season you enter free agency. What was it like being an NFL player? 5 seasons. You were one of the best free agents out there, especially on the defensive side of the football that season. What was free agency like?
Free agency is by far one of the worst things I've experienced in the NFL.
Wow. Why is that?
Because it didn't go how I expected it to go. You know, free agency is only great if you're one of the top 3 players.
Yeah.
But in particular, like that year, I was considered one of the top free agents.
Yeah.
But we had just came out of a lockout. We had just came out of the TV deal. Stuff was still going on. So I personally think the teams were colluding. They were talking amongst themselves and saying they weren't going to pay players that much that year because they only signed. I want to say they only signed like 3 guys to a big deal that year. And so for me, free agency wasn't as fun because most teams were saying I was going to be too expensive for them. So they're like, well, you're going to be too expensive. You're a top free agent. We don't have the money to pay you this year. How do y'all not have the money to pay a top free agent to come in? So for me, free agency was brutal because I'm sitting there watching. I would call my agent. I'm like, hey, man, like, what's the word? Like, any teams interested or whatever? He's like, nah, man, they're all kind of saying you're too expensive or nobody's calling or whatever. And I'm like, when I turn the TV on, I'm watching ESPN. ESPN's telling me like I'm the best free agent out right now. Like, what are we talking about right now? You know? And he's like, no, nobody's calling. I'm sorry, like nobody's calling. Because even Seattle called at the top of free agency, and they're like, yeah, we can't afford this guy. Like, we don't have enough capital or whatever. And I'm like, well, somebody just throw a deal out and let me be the decision maker on if I'll take it or not. Throw an offer out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no one would throw anything out, so that's why I ended up only signing a 2-year deal to come to Seattle.
With Seattle. At that time of free agency, like, were you willing to take a little bit less to go play on a winning team? What was your thought process there?
My thought process was who was going to pay me the most guaranteed money.
That's all. You didn't care about the wins and losses.
Well, yes and no, because I had an opportunity to go to Cleveland. Cleveland was one of the few teams that threw a deal out, but I was like, man, I can't go from Detroit to Cleveland. Like,
yeah, you got to switch it up.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think I'd be going backwards. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they played outdoors. It was freezing. Like, there's a lot of things that went into me not even considering them at the time. But it was more so. Once I realized I wasn't going to get the big deal, at that point it became, okay, winning, but also which team had the better defense that would allow me to be able to do my job at a high level.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be the superstar on the defense. I want to be around a bunch of superstars so we all can kind of lift each other up.
Yeah.
And that's what made me sign with Seattle, because at the time they had Richard Sherman, Brandon Browner, Earl Thomas, and Cam Chancellor. So in my head, the reason why I signed with the Seahawks is like, they'll give me a split second longer to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
That was was the sole purpose of me coming out here. The defense was on the rise, but they'd give me a little bit longer to be able to get to the quarterback to be able to do my job. And so that's one of the main reasons why I signed.
Love that. So you signed the 2-year, $13 million contract with Seattle, 2013. You show up. What was training camp like? Because now you got a new coach in Pete Carroll, and you're around all these stud defensive backs, linebackers. What was that like? I mean, because your first year in Detroit, you guys were 0-16, but now your first year in Seattle, you're on this championship squad. Talk us through that.
Yes. So my first camp practice, I remember walking in. And Coach Carroll he was just doing things different at the time from everybody else. I mean, we're having music blasting before meetings. He has a basketball hoop in the team meeting room. So we'd have shoot-offs before meetings. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, offensive line, we need our right tackle is going to go against our left defensive end today in a 30-second shootout. You know what I mean? And like it was all fun and games, but he was just more so putting like because his whole mantra is compete. We're going to compete at everything.
Yeah.
And that was another form of competing, but it was fun because it was completely different from what I was used to. You know, the NFL is very militant like mindset, like, right, where you know you got to sit up straight. You know, you got to have some coaches have their players tuck their shirts in, and it wasn't a lot of joking around.
Yeah.
But when I got to Seattle, everybody looked like they were having a good time. Now, it translated on the football field too, because the first practice I go to, there's music blasting. You know, you got Richard Sherman talking trash. You got Earl Thomas, all these guys talking trash, and I'm sitting here like, this is different. This is different. These guys are having fun, but they're serious about what they're doing, right? And so my first practice, I was just sitting there like, how do I fit into this puzzle? Like,
right?
Because all these guys are great. You know what I mean? Like, where do you fit into this puzzle? How are you gonna put your footprint on this defense? Because it was extremely hard to make plays on this defense. And I'm just at practice like, all right, sacks. That's what's going to be the difference maker for me. Like how I'm going to make a name for myself on this defense is you got to get after the quarterback, man.
Yeah.
Like these guys are going to give you time to get after the quarterback. They're going to respect you even more. And I was the older guy, and I was trying to get respect from them.
Yeah,
because I'm coming to their space. I'm coming to their team, right? So trying to figure out how I can get respect from these younger players was really a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at that time, you were becoming the king of forced fumbles.
Yes.
I mean, it was not just the sacks, but it was the forced fumbles. Took some notes here. So 3 of the best sack guys in the league during that era when you played were Julius Peppers, Dwight Freeney, Jason Taylor. And from a forced fumble perspective, you forced a fumble every 4.8 games in your career.
That's wild.
To put that in perspective, Julius Peppers was every 5.1 games, Dwight Freeney every 4.7, and Jason Taylor 4.8. So you were on par or better than all 3 of those guys.
And all those guys are Hall of Famers.
The only thing that was different is they played longer careers, right?
Yep.
That's crazy to think about.
It is. I mean, those are great stats. I didn't know it was that close with those guys. I mean, and what's funny is they are all those guys are guys that I studied. I studied the mess out of those guys. But going back to what I was saying about how do I fit into this puzzle? Like coming from Detroit, I was decent at the sack fumbles already. But that was going to be my statement piece because Coach Carroll has a day dedicated to turnovers. It's called Turnover Thursdays.
Okay.
So the guys on the back end, you know, they can punch the ball out and they can get interceptions. So the only way I can cause a turnover is by getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
So like that reiterated it for me is like, man, this is how you're going to put your footprint on games. Get you a sack, but get you a sack fumble. Like I'm biased, but I think it's the best play in football is getting a sack fumble recovery and take it to the house right for a touchdown. So that was always my goal every game. Like, man, not only do I want to get to the quarterback, I want to get the ball out too.
Yeah.
And I didn't recover too many of them, so a lot of my teammates got a lot of recoveries off of them. But that was kind of my statement piece. You know, all these other guys got, you know, they're going to get interceptions. They're going to punch the ball out. Cliff Avril, he's going to get a sack fumble.
But speaking of sack fumbles, so it was you guys got to the Super Bowl that year, the first year in Seattle. Yeah. You go up against the Peyton Manning, Denver Peyton. Broncos, and they were putting up points that season. I mean, every game I felt like they were putting up 40 every single game.
They had that one of the highest scoring offenses.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm a big Charger fan, and I just remember watching those. We had to play them twice every season. I just remember watching. It's like, man, like, can we hold them to 30? You know, it's just crazy, right? But they were putting up points. Chargers made the playoffs that season. I think we lost to them in the wild card round, and you guys went on to face them in the Super Bowl. And you had that big turnover in the beginning of the game, returned it for a touchdown, and the game was over after that. I mean, it was never the same, and I felt like they were never in the game after that. But what was that like, man? Super Bowl, first year with the Seattle Seahawks, and you score a freaking touchdown off of that forced fumble.
So it actually was a safety. So it was a safety. Yeah, so it was a safety, but it was crazy because going into the game, like you just said, everyone was talking about Peyton Manning and this high-flying offense. Oh, man, it's the best offense since whatever, right? They're number one. They're setting records left and right. Yeah. But no one was talking about our defense going into that game. And that just put a chip on our shoulder because our defense was probably one of the best defenses in the last 20 years. As far we were the number one defense for 4 straight years. Talking about interceptions, returning pick sixes, scoring on defense, all these different things. We were number one in all that stuff. So we were actually going into that game, we were kind of pissed about it. Like,
Right.
Nobody's gonna talk about nobody's gonna talk about the
Yeah,
defense. And I
yeah.
understand. Don't get me wrong, Peyton is a GOAT, but
Yeah.
no one's gonna talk about his defense.
Yeah.
So going into the game, from the very first play, it was funny just watching how the play played out. Peyton, it felt like a home game for us.
Yeah.
Because it was super loud, and that's what messed up their cadence. And they snapped the ball, and I ended up tagging off on the guys in the end zone. So being able to be a part of that play, it's still the fastest score in Super Bowl history.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So just being it, and it was in 12 seconds, and our whole thing here in Seattle is the 12s.
Right. That's
so
true.
it's just funny how all that kind of lined up.
Yeah.
But just being able to be a part of that, being able to play in the Super Bowl, but being able to kind of put our footprint on that game early.
Yeah.
Just showed that we were ready to play.
Yeah. What was it like preparing? Because you guys got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl to prepare.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was the high octane offense.
Mm-hmm.
You had Wes Welker, they had Eric Decker, they had Demaryius Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
How do you what did you guys do differently in practice when you guys are scheming up your defense to play them?
It's funny. That season was the first season I've ever heard of a coach even coming up with this mantra. But our whole thing was we wanted to play championship football every week, and we wanted to go 1-0 every week. That was our only thing. So with the mindset of playing championship football every week, when we got to the championship games, it was just another game to us. So we didn't change up anything other than the fact that we had 2 weeks to prepare for this team, which was bad for them.
Yeah, right.
Because we got an extra week of being able to break down the smaller detail stuff that we probably wouldn't typically get into on a normal week. So it was just a normal game for us.
Yeah.
We was just playing championship football. We prepared like we normally would prepare. We flew back down to New York a week before the game. So then we basically reset and started the week all over again to dive deeper into some of the different stuff they like to run. But it was just a championship football game for us, and we went out there and showed we showed that.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And so you win the Super Bowl, come back here to Seattle, you guys do a parade.
Oh my gosh,
what was that off season like for you?
Man, the off season was crazy. We win the Super Bowl, we have the parade like a day or two later, and the entire city shuts down. We had 1 million+ people out there. And what I thought was so cool about, now it was freezing that day too. So to have 1 million people out there with no problems, like not one issue, no fights, no nothing. And I mean, people, like schools were shutting down. And I knew it was big time when I heard banks were shutting down downtown just for the parade. Like, come on, people are about their money.
Yeah.
Like, they're not shutting anything down, right?
That's true.
So they shut down banks just so we can have our parade was unreal. So to just be out there, to get all that fan love. But even in that moment, as players, we didn't realize what that Super Bowl really meant to the city of Seattle. It's not until we retired where, like, people are coming up to me and like, bro, you made my childhood amazing. I'm like, your childhood? I'm only 36 years old. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
But when you think about it, it was 10 years ago. So some of these people were, say, 12 years old.
Yeah.
12, now they're 22, 23, 24 years old. Like, oh, that was their childhood. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to think about because I was only 25, 26 at the time too, right? So just getting out in the community and seeing like the type of impact that the Super Bowl actually had on the city was crazy. But in that time, in that moment, we had blinders on. We didn't realize what it really meant for the entire city.
Yeah. Where did a lot of the players live? Like, what part of town was the popular area to live in for a lot of the Seahawks back then?
Well, so the facility is in Renton, which is on the east side of Seattle.
Okay.
So most of us live close to the facility, and we didn't come into Seattle until game day, which was where the stadium is.
Right.
So we did all our stuff. So most of us lived either in Renton or the Bellevue area.
Okay. And then CenturyLink's over here in Pioneer Square, but not a lot of people live near that area, huh?
No. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, it's more commercial and retail spaces over there. But none of the players really lived close to the city.
Yeah. What about downtown?
No, not too many people because traffic here is no joke.
Okay.
And no one wants to get a fine for being late. You know what I mean? So like most guys, I think I only heard of one guy actually trying to live in Seattle while playing, and I'm pretty sure he was pretty late pretty often. So yeah, it was a bad idea.
Okay. Who was that guy?
I want to say Brian Maxwell was the one guy. I think he lived in the
Yeah.
city, but then end up moving closer
Yeah.
after realizing the traffic wasn't worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So next season, you guys go on to play you guys got the Super Bowl again,
Yes.
2014,
Yeah.
against Tom Brady and the
Woo.
New England Patriots, and you guys fell short, 28-24.
Yes.
But you guys were in it right there
Yes.
at the end. I mean, just talk about like what it was like coming off the high of winning the Super Bowl, and then very next season you guys get back there, but then you take the L. What was that like?
So I have a completely different vantage point than
Mm-hmm.
all my other teammates on this one because so the first half we're dominating Tom Brady, and the second half, like into the third quarter, I get hurt. So in the Super Bowl, when you get hurt, they take you into the locker room. You can't come back out. So
Really?
I have to, yeah.
Even if you're good to go, you can't come back out.
Well, I had a concussion, so they weren't gonna let me go anyways.
Right.
But from my understanding, if you go into the locker room during the Super Bowl, you can't come back out. You gotta watch the rest of the game on TV.
Wow.
So I'm watching the game. I'm watching the rest of the third and the fourth quarter on TV, and there's a 7-second delay in comparison to what I'm seeing
And what you're hearing.
and what I'm hearing.
Oh.
So I'm watching the game, and we're sitting there. My wife came to the locker room; she's in there with me, so we're watching the game. And the fourth quarter rolls around. We get towards the end of the game, and I'm hearing like we're marching down the field, and I'm hearing the crowd cheer. And then 7 to 10 seconds later, I see the play. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm watching. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Jermaine Kearse catches the ball. Crowd goes crazy. Then I get to see the play. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're marching down the field.
Yeah.
And then I hear the crowd go crazy again. Then I see the play. Marshawn gets it to like the 6-yard line or something like that, right? Then I hear the crowd go crazy again. So I'm like, oh, because I'm in my head, I'm thinking we're about to score. Like,
Yeah.
So I hear the crowd goes crazy. I mean, it's loud, like it's rumbling and everything. But I haven't seen the play because there end up being a timeout, a TV timeout.
Right.
So now it's like probably a minute and some
Yeah.
change, but the crowd is still going crazy. And in the midst of me waiting to see the play, some of my teammates start running in. And I'm like, okay, cool. My teammates running in. I'm looking at their faces, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, this isn't what I'm expecting to happen. Like, I'm thinking we scored a touchdown. Some guys come in there throwing their helmet. One guy punches a wall, breaks his hand, like pissed. And I'm like, wait up. I haven't seen the play. Like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, I haven't seen the play. Like, what's going on? And then I see the play, and I'm like, oh, we lost. Like, we really just threw an interception. We lost this game.
Was that first down or was it second and goal?
I want to say it was second and
Yeah.
goal. Second and goal. I want to say it was second and goal. And like I said, I see the interception, and I already see a lot of my teammates in the locker room, and I'm like,
That was cool.
wow. We really just – so I have a completely different vantage point
Yeah.
of the entire game and seeing how it played out. And then, of course, like I said, seeing it on TV, I was just in awe. Like, we really just like – because in my head, honestly, if we win that Super Bowl, there's not a doubt in my mind we win another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not a doubt in my mind. And I think that's kind of – after that Super Bowl, I think is when things kind of started going downhill for us a little bit.
What did Pete Carroll say to you guys after that game?
Normal stuff where it was more along the lines of, one, like, we still have a really good team.
Yeah.
Let's not
Yeah.
let the outside world influence us
Yeah.
in not believing that we're still pretty great, right? Because everybody was still in their prime. I was only year 7. Sherman, all those guys, Richard Sherman, all those guys, I think it was like year 4 maybe for them. So everyone was still fairly young. So in our heads, we were like, man, all right, well, let's try to do this thing again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least that was my perspective on it. So his whole thing was just like, let's not let the outside world influence us and change up how, we're going to view this, because now because they wanted us to start pointing fingers at each other. Yeah, oh
Right.
man, why did Coach Carroll do that? Why didn't
Yeah.
Russell do this? Why didn't Marshawn get the ball? All these different things.
Especially the media, right?
Oh, the media got on us immediately. Like, what do you think about the game? I'm like, look, man, I watched the game on TV. Like, I don't know what to think right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was really the message behind everything. Was just like, don't allow anybody to break this thing up that's so special to us.
Yeah. Who made that call, by the way? Was that Pete or was that the offensive coordinator?
I think it was the offensive coordinator. Like,
Yeah.
usually in those situations, Pete might have a say in it, but most times than not, from my understanding, is the coaches. Coach Carroll allows the coaches to kind of make their plays, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
situations like that, he'll, like I said, he'll have his 2 cents. Hey, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should, or maybe they've seen something on film, like in
Yeah.
these particular situations, they like to run it this way. So he'll suggest something, but
Yeah.
I want to say it was the offensive coordinator, but don't hold me to it because I wasn't on the mic. Again,
Yeah.
I was watching on TV like everybody else.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I remember watching that game, and it's just like, man, you get the clock wasn't an issue.
No, it wasn't.
And it's like Marshawn was running the ball so good. It's like, man, just give him the ball.
And you know what's crazy?
Uh-huh.
After talking to some of the Patriots and some of those guys, they were going to let us score.
Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy.
They were going to let us score because there was enough time. They thought Tom could bring them back.
Wow.
But instead, we threw it, and game was even easier.
They were just going to push him into the end zone.
They were going to just supposedly.
Yeah.
That's what they told us.
Because I mean, as a defense, you're kind of thinking that. I mean, you see teams do that, especially more in today's era, where like, hey, we got 45 seconds left. Let's just let them score and at least give our offense a chance. To just give them a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And then I mean, you got the great Tom Brady over there. So why wouldn't you take that chance? You know.
Yeah.
So but there's nothing more gut wrenching. To talk to some guys during the offseason, they're telling, we don't let you guys score. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, we actually had a chance to win that thing. So
that's crazy to think about, man. So anyway, so you had the first two seasons in Seattle, and then you went on to sign a 4-year extension worth $28.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up from humble beginnings with your mom, making a couple $100 paychecks and donating half to Haiti. What was that like, signing that $28.5 million contract? Hey guys, real quick, I hope that you're finding value in this show. If you could do me a huge favor and drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you're listening on, it would mean the world to me. Also, if you know of anyone that would potentially benefit from this podcast, feel free to share it with them so we can help more people build wealth through real estate investing. Now back to the show.
It was surreal, but it was more along the lines because I had got franchised a couple years before that.
Sure.
Then, I had signed that deal. And so for me, that was just like one of those, okay, this is your final contract type thing, right? But also realizing like, man, that's not chump change either, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was just, wow. Now I know my kids are good. Now I know, my mom, my dad's going to be good. I can go buy my dad that house that I've been telling him I was going to buy him for the last 7 years. Like a lot of things that I had been planning on doing I was able to do, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, getting my mom a house, getting her a car, getting my dad a house, getting him a car, paying my brother's house off, like just being able to do some of the things that I felt in the moment wasn't really a smart thing to do up until I got that next deal.
Yeah.
So it was.
Did you get yourself a new house?
Oh yeah. Well, I bought my house when I got the franchise tag. So
Okay.
I was already pretty much set. It was more so taking care of everybody else at that point.
Sure. Okay. And so then you go on a 2016 season, and you played all 16 games that year. You were named NFL or NFC Defensive Player of the Month in October. 11.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles. You make your first NFL Pro Bowl. And you could have made it in 2015, but that's a whole other conversation, right?
Man, yes.
But what was that like, man? Just that season, and you had been in the league for so many years at that point, and you were playing at the top of your game. What was that like?
It was cool, man, because I actually had gave up on the Pro Bowl nod my 4th year in the league when I got franchised because I had great stats then.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that it was more of a popularity contest than the actual work that's being put in, meaning that, there's a lot of guys that do some great things, but if you're not as popular as them, you might not get the nod.
Right.
You might not get your chance to go. So I had kind of given up on it, but I think me making it as well was more along the lines of satisfaction because everybody around me on my team had already made it to the Pro Bowl. Richard Sherman, Russell Wilson, Marshawn, Michael Bennett, all these guys had already made it to the Pro Bowl once. And I'm like, and to those guys, I was a Pro Bowler. To my peers, I was a Pro Bowler. I was a top player.
Right.
But to the country, I wasn't yet, right? So it was just more so gratifying that I was able to say I was a Pro Bowler because all the other great players on my team had already made it to the Pro Bowl. Although they already considered me one, it wasn't official. So that made me, I guess, official from that standpoint. But it was amazing just to be able to go down to Disney, and it was the first year they did it in Disney, and I'm from
really?
Jacksonville.
Okay.
So it was just perfect timing because
it all came full circle.
Everybody was able to come, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, I think I had over 150 people there.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? From high school coaches to obviously my family and different things like that. So it happened when it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Everybody got to be a part of it as well. So it was pretty cool. It was really cool.
Your mom got to show up?
My mom, like I said, all my high school coaches, cousins, uncles, everyone was there. It was a cool time.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so next season, you go on 2017, week 4. We all know what happened against the Indianapolis Colts. I believe it was Jacoby Brissett, right? Just a total fluke play, no ill intent.
No.
And like that, what was that like? Because I think you said you were good to go, right? You didn't feel like it was like a season-ending or career-ending injury at the time. Walk us through what that was like. What was going through your head?
Talk about an emotional roller coaster, right? So let me rewind a little bit just to give you perspective on just what the last 4 years looked like up until that point. So in 2013, we win the Super Bowl. 2014, we lose the Super Bowl. 2015, I lose my father. And I lose my father the same weekend I'm finding out what gender I'm because my wife was pregnant. We're having a gender reveal party. So I lose him the day before we're having the gender reveal party. So that's 2015. 2016, I go to the Pro Bowl. 2017, my career's over with. Talking about like just an emotional roller coaster, right? It was just a lot of ups and downs. So on that play in particular, it was a play that I've done 1,000 times. He was running off, trying to click his heels. Some freak accident, his heel hits me up underneath my face mask. And I felt a tingling go down both my arms and a little bit in my feet. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I felt this before, but I've only felt it on one side. I'm thinking it's a thing called a stinger. Basically, you get a little numbness on one side of your shoulder, kind of goes away after a few seconds.
Sure.
But it was both arms. So I roll over, and it's a national televised game. I think it's a Sunday night game. So the guys come talk to me, and I'm like, first and foremost, y'all are not taking me off on the stretcher. My mom's watching, like, poor lady, freak her out. She mess around and have a heart attack or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way I'm walking off this field.
Yeah.
So by the time they come get me, if you watch the film, I'm kind of shaking my hands or whatever, trying to get feeling back in my fingers. And I walk off to the sideline. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm ready to go. Like, it's Monday night or Sunday night football. I was just getting in my rhythm. Like, I was setting my guy up to like be able to get me a couple plays. So I'm ready to go. The doctor comes in, looks at me, and shout out to Dr. Stan Herring. He looks at me. He's like, nah, I think you need to go to the hospital. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I feel fine. What are you talking about? Like, go to the hospital? What do you like? Why would I do that? He's like, no, like you said, you got tingling on both sides. And as I've done more research and gotten more information, when you get tingling on both sides, it's usually a spinal injury. So I'm like, but he didn't tell me this at the moment. He's like, no, we should just take you to the hospital. I kind of fought it for a second, but then I'm like, I trust Stan, Dr. Herring. I'm like, you know what? All right, man, let's do it. Let's go to the hospital. Let's make this quick. I want to come back and finish the game out because this happened in the first quarter. So let's make it quick. Get in the ambulance, or my wife meets me down. We get in the ambulance. We go take some of these tests, and I take an MRI test. And my wife told me, actually, while we're doing the testing, he was in a good mood, but then they start seeing some of the results, and she could see his face kind of like
his whole demeanor
change, right?
Yeah.
So, but I haven't seen this or heard anything, and for like 2 hours straight, it kept asking, are you sure you're okay? Like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, man, I'm fine. Like, stop asking me this. I'm ready to go back out and play. Like, stop asking me these questions, right? Halftime rolls around. All my teammates are FaceTiming, like, bro, where you at? Like, what's up? Like, we need you. Which was kind of comforting. Like, I actually meant something to them. And the game kind of ends or whatever, and they're waiting on like the top neurospinal guy in the state. He was at the game. Wait for him. He comes in, asks me a bunch of questions as well. Like, hey man, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Stop asking me this. And he finally got to. He's like, bro, honestly, most people don't walk in with this injury. Most people are paralyzed from this injury. And I'm like, whoa. Wow. That's when it hit me like, oh, this is way more serious than I thought. But I feel fine. Like, I literally feel fine. You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, no, like, I had a herniated disc that was actually in my spinal cord fluid. So but it was, I guess if it would have went a little further in, then it would have tapped the nerve and, it would have been over with. So that's when I was like, oh, this might actually be over with. You know what I mean? Like, my career might be over with. So I met with all the top doctors around the country, just not even more so for confirmation to, like, could I keep playing, but more of confirmation of, like, do I need to have the surgery? Because I had to have surgery as well. So I ended up having surgery, got a plate in my neck about this big that's in there forever. And that was essentially my last time playing ball.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy, man. So, like, after the recovery, Did you feel like, hey, I could give it another go? Did you think about it? What was your mindset like leading up to the decision to just, basically call it?
I always looked at everything glass half full. So for me, it was, man, I'm glad this happened now than year one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This could have happened 9 years ago, and I would have never been able to live out my dream. Like I said, I had the perspective of I literally have seen everything the NFL can give me.
100%.
I went 0-16. I won a Super Bowl. I've lost a Super Bowl. I've been to the Pro Bowl. Man of the Year. I've done everything the league can actually. I've had a few contracts.
Yeah.
What are you? Why do you want to even risk or jeopardize like your health on that scale? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously the game of football is brutal in itself, but why would you, like, you'd be being selfish at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, it was just more along the lines of like, man, I dodged a bullet. You know what I mean? And what's the point of going out back to war, essentially, right? Like, I dodged a bullet. So I was okay with the decision, and I never looked back, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, again, my people are from Haiti. Parents barely spoke the language. Grew up in the projects. What are you complaining? Like, why? Why would you try to even take that risk, you know?
And like you said, man, like had it happened in year 1 or 2, that's a
different
whole different
ballgame. Year 1, you're probably you're like, man, I'm playing. You know what I mean? I'm going to consider playing. Year 10 is like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, but you had the multiple contrasts, you had the Super Bowl stuff, made the Pro Bowl, and you had, how old were your kids at the time when you decided to hang it up?
So my oldest was 5, and my youngest was a few months old.
Yeah. That's amazing. Got to see their childhood, spend a little bit more time with them.
Well, everything was aligned the way it needed to. And it's funny because people would always ask me, like, when you get to year 9, year 8, year 9, people are like, man, how much longer you want to play? Because, I mean, it's an anomaly to get to 10. It's an anomaly to get to the league, let alone getting to 10 years. And I would always say, man, 10 is the number. 10 is the number. My dad, before he passed, he's like, man, once you get to 10, like, you need to hang it up. Like, that sport's too brutal, all these different things. And it's funny because the year before I got hurt, we started contract talks of possibly extending me. And so that means I would have obviously had to play longer than 10 years. Yeah. So in my head, it was like God telling me, like, nah. 10 was what you wanted to get to. 10 is where you're going to be at,
So what was that transition like? Because, I mean, you're an athlete your whole life, from high school and then played at Purdue and then 10-year NFL career. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, like, this is a start to a new chapter in my life. Yeah. What's going through your head there?
It's a scary space because literally the thing you've been doing since you were 14, you're 33 at the time, just got taken away.
Which is still so young.
Super young. Yeah. Super young, right? So it was more along the lines of like, man, like, okay, what else do you like to do? Because you really don't know. You know what I mean? Now, I always had the mindset of football is what I do, it's not who I am, right? So I never tried to intertwine the two. Now, it gets harder the more you play, the longer you play, because people just start recognizing you for football. Yeah. And I understood that, but I also never wanted to get, because I knew one day it would end, right? So it was just more along the lines of just, all right, what else do you like to do? What else are you passionate about? And my whole mindset was like, you're blessed to have time to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my mindset. It's like, you have time to figure it out. Financially, you're not strapped. You can figure it out. You can try different things. So my first gig was I had my own radio show here in Seattle. Okay. Because that's kind of the thing, right? We want to do media after we're done because we have a different perspective, which was great. But I realized quick that although it was fun, it wasn't as fun as I thought it would have been, right?
How so?
Just, I mean, the grind of it, right? Because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, 3-hour show, that's easy. Like 3 hours a day, but you have to prep for this, right? Yeah. So really, it's a 6-7 hour type of thing, right? On top of the fact that you're in a new space, new people. Some people want to see you succeed, some don't. And also I didn't realize how people really felt about athletes, meaning they love that you can play the sport, but they hate that you get paid so much for it. And my fight was always like, no one says that about anybody that's a 1% of whatever space that is, right? Doctors, like the top neurosurgeon, The reason he gets paid all that money is because he's one of few people that can do what he does.
Sure.
Right? Professors, like some of the top professors, like they probably get paid really good money because most people haven't put in the work that they've put in to be in that space. So it's the same thing with athletes. Most people can't do what we do. Like that's just what it was, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they pay us so much. But I didn't understand that until I got out of the game of understanding, like, dang, fans really love us, but they love us just on Sundays. They don't really care too much about us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the same thing with like entrepreneurs, or like these bigger name entrepreneurs, investors. People are always like, "Oh, it must be nice." But
exactly.
It's like, well, like
you don't
know what that person went through to get to where they are today, and you don't know the risk that they ended up taking to get to where they are today. You know what I mean? And so you hear that a lot, though. It must be nice.
But
you know what I mean?
That we were talking about this before we came on. Is people aren't willing to sacrifice on that level, so they don't understand that it's not just you just see the finished product. Yeah. You just see game day. Yeah. You just see Sundays and Mondays, but you don't see Monday all the way through Saturday. You don't see the off season. Mm-hmm. You don't, like, as an entrepreneur, you don't see the days of struggling, sleepless nights. All these, like, you don't see that. You just see the finished product. So you're thinking, oh, it must be nice. Right. No, it was a grind to get here, man. It was a process to get here that most people aren't willing to take.
Yeah.
Most people aren't willing to sacrifice those sleepless nights. Most people aren't willing to sacrifice being away from their families and different things like that to get to their dreams. So they won't understand that. And I had to come to that conclusion on my own because I used to get so pissed. I'm like I worked my tail off for this. Right. Nothing was given to me. You know what I mean? Nothing was ever given. So like I just had to come to the realization that most people won't ever understand it because people aren't willing to take that risk. It's a lot easier to go get a 9-to-5, right? Yeah. Instead of jumping off the deep end and being like, you know what? I'm going to create my own business. Yeah. I'm going to be my own entrepreneur. I might not make money for the next 4 or 5 years, but I'm setting myself up for years, for the next 20, 30 years if I can sacrifice now, right? So just understanding that. So getting back to your original question is, the transition was hard, but I just had to figure some of these different things out. And then now I'm into the real estate space because I've realized that being an entrepreneur is very similar to being a football player. The same grind, the same work ethic, the same process, mentality, it's all the same. Yeah. It's all the same. And that's why I jumped into the space, because it's familiar to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now in the real estate space.
Yeah, so I buy value-add distress multifamily properties, and we go in and we renovate them, and we buy and hold everything. We hold on to everything, and we cash flow. Name of the game for me is cash flow, but in particular, the reason why I dove deep into the real estate space, outside of the fact that it looks familiar as far as for the type of grind and process that goes into it, I started my company because I wanted to help my family and friends be able to create generational wealth through real estate, making them understand that your money can work for you and you can work less, right? Being able to being able to have some steady cash flow. I was telling my mom, she's invested in some properties with me, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like I didn't have to work for this extra $500. Like that's new to her, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, yes, that's what investing looks like. Yeah. That's what like making your money work for you. So creating a platform for my family to be able to create generational wealth through real estate has been my mission. On top of, I have my own foundation, the Cliff Avril Family Foundation, where we do a lot of work in Haiti, a lot of work here in Seattle, a lot of work back in Jacksonville, mentoring programs and different things like that. So I'm staying busy for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. So talk us a little bit more about your foundation. You mentioned Haiti and Seattle. What kind of projects are you doing back in Haiti?
So in the past, we have a school in Haiti right now, an elementary school that we built a few years back. We built 25 homes in Haiti as well. I do football camps out there as well, because football is actually a foreign sport to them. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. My mom thought it was a barbaric sport. Yeah. Well, Haiti thinks
they still think it.
Yeah, they definitely. But surprisingly, there's a lot of Haitians in the NFL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's I guess some kind of correlation there. But so we've done football camps. We support a few different organizations out in Haiti as well. And then out here in Seattle, I have the Cliffs Crew, which is a mentoring program that I've been mentoring these black and brown boys since they were in 3rd grade. Now they're in 7th and 8th grade right now. And it's all about exposing them to different opportunities that are here in Seattle. Unfortunately, they don't see themselves other than being an entertainer or athlete on TV. Like that's the only thing they kind of see themselves as. So I want to expose them to different professions that are here, different, having that entrepreneurial mindset as well. So, for example, I took them to the Seahawks facility, and
that's cool.
And, most people only think of the players.
Sure.
Right. But if you go into that facility, there's lawyers, there's doctors, there's chefs, there's engineers, whatever profession you can think of is in that building. But if you don't know that, you won't ever aspire to be that. Yeah. So like that's kind of the mindset of what I try to show those boys.
I love that. Just letting them know what's possible.
That's it. Like if you can't dream about something you ain't never seen.
Yeah.
You can't dream about something you ain't never heard about. Right.
Yeah.
So showing them and exposing them to just different things, I think, is what allows people to grow and dream to be those things.
I love that, man. Well, Cliff, listen, it's been a fun conversation. We could probably talk for hours about the real estate stuff, but thank you so much for joining us. Where can the audience learn more about you, your foundation, and your real estate stuff?
Foundation, Cliff Avril, familyfoundation.org. Real estate stuff. You just catch me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm not really good at TikTok just yet, but I'm still trying to learn it. And it's all easy. It's at Cliff Avril. You can catch me on all the social media platforms and talking about real estate and a little bit of everything else.
Love to hear it, my man. Well, he's Cliff Averill.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Rich Summers, signing off.